No. Cut the intro. Cut the intro. We're not doing the intro today. No, we don't need to do the intro for every... Look, we're already going to kill it dead next week anyway, so just jump straight to the review. Thank you. Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, released in 2005 for the Game Boy Advance, courtesy of Ubisoft, may very well be the best Star Wars game on the platform. Not exactly high praise considering the Star Wars output on the Game Boy Advance, but this is a genuinely good game, though I say that with some reservations. Revenge of the Sith is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, where you get to play as either Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker or Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, each with their own unique movesets as well as their own unique levels and story progression. You start with 3 lives, you beat up some droids and stuff, you trash some scenery, and as you progress through the game you'll gain skill points to upgrade your force powers and attacks and abilities, of which you have a number of moves and can learn more as you progress further into the game. Game boasts about a dozen or so levels, some exclusive to either Anakin or Obi-Wan, while some can be played by both. 3 difficulty settings to choose from, and you have 3 save slots to keep track of your progress, which is rather nice because this is a rather long game with a lot of levels, and the levels are fairly lengthy and stuff. Look, it's a beat 'em up, the kind of genre that's been done before, and it's familiar fare to even those who have never touched a Star Wars anything. You move to the right, you slash a few droids, guards, Jedis, younglings, whatever, before moving a bit further and getting to stop more things, and you'll eventually, occasionally fight a boss thing. You'll break stuff to reveal pickups that'll either heal you, restore your force power, or you can collect one of the game's hidden skill points. Said points are used to upgrade your abilities, increase your meters, and basically improve your attacks. The gameplay is fairly basic stuff with some bits to make it seem like there's a little more depth than there actually is, and it's fine. Control's pretty solid and responsive. You've got a wide variety of moves and abilities, even with the limited button count of the Game Boy Advance. You can do all the cool Jedi shit like deflecting lasers with your lightsaber, force throwing garbage at enemies, that sort of thing. And each player eventually learns their own unique moves and abilities, each attuned to their own side of the Force. So naturally, Anakin gets all the cool dark side shit, while Obi-Wan has the not so cool but still useful light side stuff. The only thing I don't care for is the jumping. It's just this one little shitty somersault hop with no airtime and only seems to serve as a setup for one of your saber attacks. Now that's kind of lame, but to its credit, Sith isn't making you platform with this shit hop. It is, however, making you hop over these shit blue beams that are shit and only exist to ruin your day. Beyond that, no issues with playability. This is a perfectly fine playable game. Now every so often, in order to break up the possible tedium of beating up nameless droids and such on an endless basis, you'll encounter another Jedi or Jedi-like opponent to duel against, and these adopt a different format from the typical beat-em-up fare. It's more of a one-on-one single-plane dueling game. Basically, duels boil down to blocking an incoming attack, which are telegraphed to give you a hint as to how to block said attack, and then find an opening to execute a counterattack and deliver some damage. Lather, rinse, repeat until either you're dead or the boss is dead. It's actually my least favorite part of the game. I'm not going to say that it's poorly executed because it really isn't. The mechanics are fine, it offers a nice challenge, as well as a reprieve from the hack and slash of the rest of the game, and it's not brain dead or anything like that. But it's also fairly strict and rigid in that you have to approach these a certain way and doesn't allow for much flexibility in terms of flavor. You have to play this a certain way, and trying to do anything else beyond that certain way will likely get you killed. Again, it's something different to break away from the eventual feeling of monotony you get from playing the rest of the beat-em-up, and it's done well enough, I'm gonna give it that much. It's just an aspect of the game that I don't personally care for, and that's perfectly fine. Graphics in Sith are fairly decent, opting for a more cartoonish approach to its visuals rather than trying to go for anything hyper-realistic, which is probably for the best on this platform. It's nice, bright, colorful, somewhat ironic considering the film it's based on, but perfect GBA fodder, especially for the vanilla variant with no backlight. The animation's fairly smooth in terms of the attacks and such, and the movement. The levels and the characters, they all look the part, look pretty good all things considered. The cutscenes are simple and basic, but also do a good job of retelling Sith's overall stories from both sides of the coins. Visually speaking, it's a perfectly fine looking game. And the audio isn't so bad either. Some choice Star Wars themes recreated to varying degrees of decency. Practically none of it is from the actual Revenge of the Sith film, but rather culled from the previous 5 films, though to be fair, the console game pretty much did the same thing, so I can't fault it too much. You also have a selection of sound effects, some of which are actual sound effects from the Star Wars sound library and such, so that's kind of neat, but also to be expected, even on the Game Boy Advance. And yes, that is the red alert klaxon from Star Trek being featured in a Star Wars game. Okay. Overall, Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith for the Game Boy Advance is to the Game Boy Advance line of Star Wars games what the film was to the Star Wars prequel trilogy. They essentially saved the best for last. Gameplay is simple, safe fare that's easy to get into. The unique paths and moves of the 2 Jedi gives it some replayability, and while I'm not a fan of the duels, they do come close to recreating those classic Jedi battles, albeit without the more fantastical elements. All in all, Revenge of the Sith is a fine little game and a fine cap to a long line of otherwise mediocre Star Wars games on the Game Boy Advance. And next week we get to revisit them all. Oh goody.
Yes, so next week we're going to be revisiting these Star Wars games on the Game Boy Advance and add another one to the list for the first time, just in time for Halloween, to revisit these dreadful... Wait, what do you mean it's December?
Oh yeah, there's also a DS version of this thing, which is the same thing, but has higher quality music and vehicle segments. I didn't mention it during the actual review because it isn't relevant to the video, so yeah. Bye.